Hey, gang. Looking forward to our time together in this course with the Bible, gender, and sexuality, and being able to do this with Dr. Ricks. I know it's going to be a very engaging class, and we're going to have lots of good discussions and really going to delve into some things that really kind of open up ways of reading text in different ways, and also thinking about how these texts might function in pastoral context. So I'm really looking forward to what it is that we'll share together. Of course, Dr. Ricks is going to be doing a lot about reading texts out of the Hebrew Bible or out of the Old Testament, and I'm going to be doing some things out of the New Testament. We're going to look basically at a big number of issues that have to do with reading the biblical text in their larger context. So we'll look at the question about how gender is constructed in a Greco-Roman society, with particular interest in Second Temple Judaism. What's the nature, or how is the nature of males and females viewed in the New Testament, and how that might be comparable to how those same gender identities are seen in Greco-Roman society. We'll even look at the idea of characteristics of what it means to be masculine and feminine, again, within the larger Greco-Roman context, and then the New Testament authors, and see in what ways the New Testament authors may be supporting that conception of masculinity and femininity, and maybe in what ways are they subverting it, what ways are they challenging it. We'll also kind of investigate the Second Temple Jews, how they discuss sexuality, and when they do, when the literature of Second Temple Judaism discusses sexuality, what do they seem to be addressing? What questions are concerned? So when the subject matter arises, what are they trying to tackle? Also look about apocalyptic influences. Apocalypticism during the Second Temple Jewish period is huge in terms of reorientating many Jews and with regards to God's justice and how God is going to work in the world and bring about his justice and bring about his kingdom. And so questions about how apocalyptic influences may have helped to view issues of gender and sexuality. Because, Jesus is shares that apocalyptic view of many Jews as well as the early Christians. So being aware of that apocalyptic approach to questions about gender and sexuality will be kind of interesting, intriguing for us. Also, the sapiential, the wisdom material that's popular during this time, how it too thinks about masculinity and femininity. We'll also be looking at what is occurring in the Roman world when it comes to sexual behavior and law. So the Romans actually, during the first century, instigated some new laws to try and control or limit certain sexual behaviors. So Roman sexual behavior and Greek sexual behaviors are not the same. And so while there was a lot of cultures that had kind of adopted certain Greek standards of behavior, Roman society was trying to minimize that. Um, so we'll also look at the question about Jesus as queer. Of course, the language of queer is also this idea of non-normative, something that stands out. In a lot of ways, Jesus was queer in the sense of he was unusual. He was different. He wasn't in the same mold. Of course, one of the big difference between Jesus and many within society is Jesus was single, and marriage was seen as the first commandment, and that it was an obligation for Jews to marry and to have children. I mean, that was considered the right thing to do. That was considered the appropriate thing to do. So Jesus is different in that it's not unheard of. The other people were single, and so it's not out of the ordinary to be single. But that was Jesus. And but when we're thinking of, there's also seems to be this tendency of queering Jesus. In other words, ways in which Jesus scholars look at how Jesus behaves in ways that circumvents or subverts many cultural standards. And what does that say about Jesus, and how is those behaviors kind of appropriated by a Christian culture or a Christian ethic? Now, there are some kind of specific teachings as well, both in Jesus' teaching as well as in Paul's teaching, that will be kind of interesting to explore a bit. The question about divorce and remarriage is an important one, because Jesus' teaching on divorce and remarriage is oftentimes um, brought into a discussion when Christians are involved in divorce. And so, especially for those who are in the G-Men portion of this course, how are these texts used in order to give pastoral counseling or direction? How are these texts utilized to give guidance to people who are facing the question of either facing the question of getting married or facing the question of ending a marriage? And so we'll want to explore that a little bit. Also, the Paul's view about women's role in the church is pretty much a hot topic. And how did Paul view women generally? And there are some big questions about Paul's view of women and what that means for accepting Paul as an authoritative voice in dealing with questions of women's role in the church today. And so we'll explore that issue as well. So there's a couple of reading assignments that we'll have. And so I do have some discussion questions, some for the those in the taking it as a Bible credit, and then some different questions for those who are taking it as the G-Men credit. And I will put those questions up in Blackboard under the course content. So look for your questions there. So if you'll look at the questions, think about some of those. Maybe some of these are things we will have a chance to um, converse with either on the Monday or sometime during the week. We'll try and deal with some of these questions, as well explore some of the things that you'll be assigned to review in class and discuss with classmates. So it's going to be a fun class. It's going to be very different. We are expecting, obviously to be together 8 to 5 every day. Maybe some of y'all were looking forward to that, intensive time. Others of you may feel, okay, well, this may be a better situation where we'll interact with each other for briefer time online, and then there'll be a podcast that Dr. Ricks and I will do and share with you over several weeks. And so instead of getting your seat time all in that 1 week, you'll get it basically spread out. So, of course, if there's any questions that you have about anything that you're reading, especially for the New Testament, and you want to ask me, I'm here to help address any questions that you might have, explore any issues. This is a big issue, and there's a lot of things that we just don't know. And so I'm not telling you that I'm going to have the answers to all your questions, but I am saying that I want to explore these questions with you. And we will see what resources are out there to start thinking about how we integrate some other approaches to reading text and how valuable they are. So you will probably read some things that I've assigned that would be atypical of maybe many of your experiences with these subjects. And that's intentional. I do want us to read things outside our kind of comfort zone or outside of what we might traditionally think, so that we kind of expand our knowledge and awareness of how different people could look at a text, and think ourselves how much of this is valuable and how much we want to critique or why we want to critique it. So in the process of critiquing things you disagree with, you begin to kind of formulate a clearer understanding of your own views. So again, if you have questions or you have any issues, please just go ahead and feel free to email me. And I look forward to us getting started next week. So take care.